afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Today, we have the pleasure of having Mary Malone from our customer success team and Jenny Hollingsworth from our delivery team. And they're going to be presenting on people, 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 change management for project success. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation. So please feel free to type them into the questions box and we will get them answered during our presentation. And we'll also have Q&A time at the end. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mary and Jenny to kick off our presentation.
Great. Hi, I'm Mary.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm about ready to switch over the screens, but while I'm doing that, Jenny, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jenny Hollingsworth from Inovia Consulting. I am a solution architect on one of the project teams. Been working with Inovia for, actually last week, just turned 19 years here. Prior to that, I was at another NAV partner in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for about 10 years. So all in all, I've been working with NAV to Business Central for about 29 years. So lots of experience, lots of implementations over the past. I know Mary keeps trying to pin me down on how many I've done in that time period. And I couldn't even fathom a guess.
So I think it's an awful lot, Jenny. So let me take a moment and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Mary Malone, and I am a customer success manager here at Inovia, and I'm about ready to celebrate my 5th year here. My background, unlike Jenny's, is not in the implementation of NAV, Navision, or BC, but my experience is in being a senior leader in a startup company that grew to about a $35 million company with about 600 people from the time that I started with about 10 of us. So I've run a lot of different kinds of projects and had a lot to do with change management. I have a funny story about changing offices that I'll share later. But Jenny and I both have a lot of experience with projects, and we've learned a lot about people management along the way. So I'm going to just go over a little bit about the session description that you signed up for, which is we're going to talk about change management, and we're really going to talk about harnessing and why to harness the dynamics of change to help make projects more successful. Again, while we'll be focusing on ERP projects and in particular bringing Jenny's experience in, this really applies to any kind of project, and I hope that you take home some theories and also some tools that will help you, whether it's an ERP implementation or another kind of project. So first, we're going to talk about the challenges to change, and then we're going to, along the way, share tools and tips and insights that will be able to help you. But before we do,
yeah, we thought we'd start the session off with a laugh, maybe. Everyone is familiar with Dilbert. Who doesn't love a good Dilbert cartoon? Or I suppose after reading it, it could be a cry as well.
There you go.
That's right.
Well, actually, I just want to talk a little bit about change management then as we go forward with this particular presentation. Change management, if you look up the definition, it really includes all of the approaches to prepare, support, and help individuals, teams, organizations to make organizational change. Now, a lot of people default to thinking about either project management or process management, the things and the tasks that bring about change. But Jenny and I are really going to focus on the people management in this part of in this particular presentation. But change management as a whole, is really about looking at all the sides of it, and it really does have a good payoff. And I like to share this particular slide from the research that a group at ProSite did that really talked about if folks were excellent at project management, they were really achieved 6x in terms of the folks that were only fair in project management versus the people who were really bad in project management. So if you were terrible at project management, maybe you got 15% of your goals. Fair at project management, got about 3x or about 42% of the stated goals. Again, if you were great at project management, over 15% to 93% is about 6x. And again, there was almost 6,000 change practitioners. They've been reporting on it for years. Again, it's a good reminder that change management, both process and people, make a whole lot of difference in the ultimate outcomes. And I think Jenny and I have both seen that, and we're excited to share our insights about that. So. Oops. So I just want to talk for just a moment then about characteristics of successful projects. Typically, we would do this in a big group and get everybody talking, but since we're on a webinar, we've taken the opportunity to summarize it. But when we ask people to think of the last time you were on a mission critical and successful project, whatever project that was, in your organization, in a different organization, I asked people to write down what made it successful. When we did this at the conference, or we've done it lots of different places, we end up generally with these 4 answers. Organization or project management, the leadership shown in the organization, people, and then whether there was a plan that held people accountable for it. And so my point is that we know how to have successful projects. Everybody's been involved in a successful project at some point. We all have a list of things that made us successful. So I always say, like, this is a take-home tool. Before you start a project, I always encourage people to say, hey, organization, let's get the leadership group, the project team together and say, okay, the last time we were super successful, what did we do? And then ask ourselves, how are we going to do that in this particular project that we're thinking of? Or if we're in the middle of a project and we feel like it's not going quite as well as we thought, maybe we say to ourselves, hey, when we were really successful, we did X, Y, and Z. And wait, we're really only doing X and Z, but we left out Y of this project. So maybe we need to do a little bit better job on Y. So again, I challenge yourself around what was successful. Again, it's often the people side of it. And then challenge yourself to either shore it up before you start a project, or if you're in a project, maybe take another look and see if you can make adjustments along the way.
All right, Mary. So then why is change so challenging for some?
So, well, Jenny, I think there's lots of reasons, but let me start this way. It's been said that the only person who likes, or the only thing that likes change is a wet baby. It used to be a wet baby and a vending machine, but vending machines take ATM cards and dollar bills now, so change doesn't even matter for a vending machine. So a little bit of laugh, but I think it's important. People are kind of afraid of change. And why might that be, Jenny?
Well, we developed a list of possible inhibitors to change. We have a few of them listed here, a lot of good reasons, but from my past project experiences and even current ones, the top reason that I see normally is fear of the unknown. So many people have anxiety, and they're more likely to experience that fear and anxiety when there's a lack of communication within the organization. And then maybe number 2 for me is past experiences. Maybe they had a software implementation or an upgrade that just went horribly wrong, and they're resistant to it now, and they don't want to go through it again. So I think for me, those are probably the top 2 that I've seen in this list.
I also think, sometimes people are worried about that the change is going to cause them to lose their job, which is definitely something to be afraid of. Or,
That's
they
true. I
fear,
mean, AI is coming out, right?
Right. Although I don't know that people are going to lose their jobs. I think their jobs are going to be different. And maybe that's the thing, just different is sometimes worrisome to people as well. Or they feel really good about that how they do their job now, and they're worried that they won't be the expert. Or, people just have habits. Habits are hard to change. So there's lots of reasons, and I'm sure the audience can put their own things on this list. But I think it's important to call out what those inhibitors are. So let's maybe think about what some of the insights that we can give. I think we've got 7 here about overcoming some of the people challenges. So let me just start for a moment, because I think Jenny hit this one on the head as well. Humans really crave certainty. Familiarity is a powerful human driver, and there's some folks that say it might even be stronger than survival. And we can all think of situations that maybe people stay in a situation or continue to do something that's maybe not in their best interest, can lead to not good things happening for them, but it's there and it's familiar, and the fear of changing is really big, even though their survival might be impacted. We fear the unknown because change can be dangerous, right? And there's some thought around change that being afraid of change is maybe actually hardwired into our DNA. If human beings, kind of got up every morning and said, okay, we need the same cave, we need the same hunting grounds, the same food, all of those kinds of things kept us safe. And unknowns could be particularly dangerous. So again, it's really important to understand that in our almost probably DNA, as humans, we want certainty. And by the nature, change interrupts that, right? Now, leaders can help, bring some certainty to things, but we want them to feel like, I'm certain that this is going to be fun, good for my career, and get me out of the work I hate doing now, and bring that kind of certainty. Some people like change, but most other folks are going to struggle here. So let's lay out then some of the ways to help with the movement from certainty that we crave to the unknown of change.
So we would want to share a compelling case for the change. No one wants change for just change's sake, right? Everyone's already too busy with their daily tasks at their job. So it's really important that we could create this compelling case for change. Why do we need the change? So some ideas, you could align with a known strategy. For example, maybe it's an existing vision statement for the company. We could leverage data. It takes you 5 hours a week for data entry on invoices. Wouldn't it be great if you never had to do invoice data entry again? So really, share the benefits. How will this benefit the user? You could create urgency. So you'd want to identify and communicate any potential risks or even consequences of implementing that change. And you could link that change to a higher purpose. So share the vision of what that future state looks like. So here's a tool. What is your compelling case for change? Figure out what that is and then share it with those around you. So when sharing that vision, we would want to, paint a picture of where the organization will end up and, what the anticipated outcomes are. So we'd really want to make that vision clear and compelling. And when that's done well, when the vision's clear and the communication is done well, every employee should be able to describe what he or she will experience on the other side of that change, highlight their role in it. And for employees, the most significant factor is the impact of that change on their job. So really help them to visualize why their life will be better because of their change or this change. That's really their win in this scenario.
So again, just to highlight, sometimes, we get an email on Monday or a training on Tuesday and some kind of a go live on Wednesday. And, zero, as the young folks say, 0 out of 10 don't like, right? There's no compelling vision there. It just happened to me. It's change that was forced on me. But what if I had known about it? What if I had expected it? What if I knew there was going to be a win? What if I saw that compelling vision of how my life was going to be better? Maybe then it's not so bad, although, 3 days is probably not enough time. But again, help me to see how I'm going to benefit from it, and where we are to where we're going doesn't seem so bad. So as we talk about then a lot of it's about communication, and I think we all know that. But a couple of ideas that I've seen work effectively, is to be intentional, structured, and systematic about communication, and be proactive and get out ahead of it. One of my favorite tools is the communication cascade, which is that, depending on how large your organization is, let's say there's 4 levels in it. The top team meets, they all get their communications ready, they all talk about it, they develop communication points for whatever the reason is about it, and then they share those points exactly as agreed with their team. Each of those folks share with their team. And then each of those folks then share at the next level with their team. And then each of those folks share at the next level with their team. And the idea is that within a day or a week, depending on how big your organization is, everybody's heard the same message, whether it's about this project or anything else. But everybody uses the same talking points. There's a time that we know everybody is scheduled to hear the messages. And you can record them if people are in PTO or work remotely or whatever, with an obligation to listen to them. But the tool of starting at the top and making sure when each individual is going to hear the news, whatever it is, whatever the update is, etc., is really important to making sure that it's structured, systematic, and jumps out ahead proactively. Now, you may have lots of tools in your organization. Back in the day, it might have been a newsletter. These days, it's probably something electronically. The idea is to use the tools that you have to make sure that the message coming from the top reaches everybody within the organization. And again, it needs to start really at the top, because that way anybody at any level of the organization can trace the message to an organizational goal and an organizational priority as established by the leaders of the organization. It's a great tool. I'm sure you've got others that work.
And Mary touched on this a little bit. It must come from the top. But I really do love this slide. It's not optional. The worst would be if there's mixed messages from leadership. If you can't support the change 100%, I don't even think of making it, because all the employees will know it.
So, yeah, Jenny, I think that's a really important point. Sometimes even when as leaders, sometimes, we'd all get together in a group and maybe 3 of the 4 of us agreed. But the one person who didn't agree loudly and shared that, and kind of caused the rest of the organization to wonder, was it really important if not everybody was in agreement about it? And I do think that there needs to be the pinky swear kind of thing, where you all get together and say, okay, we are doing this, we're going to be aligned in our communication, and we're not going to give those mixed messages out. Because then people might start to think, hey, I don't have to change. It might be optional. They're not really serious about it. And that makes the projects work harder for everybody. So, and then along with what we've been talking about leaders is I also think that the leaders have to walk the talk, whatever that means in the context of your project. They need to model whatever the new behaviors are. So if there's a process change, they need to be engaged in doing them. And if there's a training, if you will, they should be online to participate in it. Now, I'm not saying that every leader needs to know every step of every keystroke, in particular in an ERP implementation, but to be there, to be present, to be understanding what the team is going through. It's really, really important. And they exhibit that they're learning too, maybe not at the same level, but that they're learning too, and they're part of it. And that inspires folks. It keeps them moving forward. It makes change seem a little bit less daunting. So the other thing is, and I will say, this slide is probably the most controversial things we present, but I'll say it anyway. You know, obviously employees are essential, right? They're the ones that are going to make changes. They must be included, we think, from the beginning whenever possible. We also need to invest extra time in folks that are on the front line who are going to be making the changes, whatever that means. People are going to be involved in the process changes that you're going to need to make, people that are going to need to know how to do things differently within BC or in the ERP as they learn how to take those process changes and turn them into the keystrokes they need. You can need to invest extra time in influencers, the folks within the organization who tend to influence other folks, usually for the positive. And then also active changers. So the people who are really into the changes, really like change and are enthusiastic about it. They're the ones who need to like be encouraged a lot because they're going to help the rest of the organization come along. Now, the one thing that I will say is I think it's really important to spend less time with the active resistors. And sometimes this is where a lot of people challenge. We had about a half hour of discussion, I think, on this one topic at the Innovia client conference last year. But some people say, hey, no, I need to spend more time with them because I'm going to change their minds. And I'm a big believer in saying, no, spend less time with them. Tell them what you need, tell them why you need it, and then just keep repeating that. Don't let them drain the energy away from you because sometimes they're not willing to change. They want to do it the old way. They're trying not to make the change happen. And the more attention that you spend with them trying to convince them, they don't maybe want to be convinced, right? It takes the time away that you have, the limited time, from encouraging the people who are actively changing. Those people are the really important to it. I think the active resistors, again, they need to be given a chance. They need to be told, hey, we know you can do this. We're glad that you're going to do this. This is what we need to do. This is our expectation. We'll train you, but you still need to do it. So, and Jenny, I don't know if you've had any experience with that, but I know sometimes active resistors can really hold up a project.
No, I have in a few different projects, and it takes time away from actually getting the work done and moving forward with the project.
Yeah. So again, I think it's important to set the expectation that we need them to change, not be heartless about it, but be firm, and don't get sucked into the conversation of how they can resist more. They can resist on their own time, not mine. So, all right. So another thing again, going back to people and change, the other thing that's important is people don't change unless they want to, right? So it's like the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can run around, you can feed them salt, You can take them on treks, you can have them carry heavy loads, but a horse, you can't make a horse drink. They only drink when they want to. And again, I think sometimes by engaging folks who are resisting, we're helping them drag out the process of coming to the want to. Again, there's only one thing that makes someone change, and that's the realization that they have to do it. So I think that's important to consider as well. So.
All right, so it's implementation time. So what can we do to help with change? So we can set expectations. People that know what's expected of them are much more engaged, productive, and they're more satisfied with their work. We could make sure we communicate throughout the project, really understand what more they need and what we could do to help them. Solicit feedback. So yeah, let's ask for feedback. What's going right? What's going wrong as well? All that feedback will help us to identify anything that needs resolution earlier on in the project than maybe at go live. And then give them the tools that they need to do their tasks. So fix the dripping faucet. I like this slide. Do you have any dripping faucets in your project? You know, the one thing is, should we ignore that dripping faucet and wait till it becomes a bigger, more expensive problem later? No, we wouldn't want to ignore it. We'd want to get it fixed immediately. So the same with your projects. But let's try to resolve any issues early on. Let's make the tough decisions so those issues don't become bigger and more expensive problems later at go live. I keep saying every slide's my favorite slide, but I do like this one as well. The safe zone. I love the picture. If your child was going out to play baseball, would you just put them right in the big game first thing? Well, no, you'd have them out there practicing. And that's the same with the implementation, software implementation. We want to make sure we give the users and team really time to practice, have a test environment that's their safe zone. You know, it's safe there to test, and test more, and even test some more. See what happens when things go wrong as well. So it really can help to give the user certainty, and it will really help them gain confidence for when we do go live with the software.
So I want to take a minute now and talk a little bit about the project team itself. So I've been collecting ideas and tools from my colleagues at Innovia, but also bringing in some of my other experience as well to give some insights and some tools for success. So if you're talking to the project team, you know, one of the things is, again, they're usually getting together and you continued communication again about how important the project is. You know, engaging maybe leadership, the senior leadership, to convey that message very specifically to the project team. We also want to say to the project team, like, this is why we selected you for this. We need your specific set of skills or your experience or your knowledge in order for this project to be successful. You know, make them feel wanted, make them understand that they're not just on a project because they drew the short straw. They're on the project for a very specific reason and how much you need them. It's also really fair to the project team to make sure that they understand their roles and responsibilities within the project team, and that we're good with due dates and deadlines, and that understanding what of their priorities are going to be during this time. And for them to get help with decision making, how do they balance the role that they're in now with their obligation to the project and helping them to make those decisions, right? Because that's one thing that the project team can be afraid of, or being on the project team may seem really daunting because nobody sat down and said, how am I going to get support with that? So the company-wide support is to help them remember that there's an ROI, a mission critical ROI for the organization that they've been asked to be part of, and that they're going to get some kind of backup or some kind of help, some kind of fill in order to make it possible for them to give their best to the project. And then with the project teams, it's like anything else in your regular meetings. You want to listen, reward participation, give praise to them. And I find most importantly is to celebrate and celebrate the wins. And I want to just take a moment to talk about celebration. You know, I'm a big believer in the abundance mentality around celebrations. I kind of, people at Innovia kind of tease me about it. I like to be on the fun patrol um, because I think that for whatever reason, we've just become kind of stingy with rewards and recognitions and, you know, even small rewards like pizza or your equivalent to a pizza party. Um, One of the things that I often think about is I spent a lot of time in healthcare, and a ER physician that I worked with was really trying to help with his organization to have an abundance mentality about recognizing each other and thanking each other and celebrating small wins, not just the big wins, and in small groups. And like every shift, he would try and find something to celebrate. And he's always said to me that, you know, we worry so much, we spend so much time like, oh, people are going to get big heads if we celebrate all the time and if we tell them what a great job that they're doing. And Jay said words that I have never forgotten. Remember, he's been an ED physician for something like 40 years at the time. He said that no one had ever come to his ED, his emergency department, that had been diagnosed with a big head. And he said, if somebody did, he'd stop trying to give more recognition. But nobody's had a big head. And so he really wants to encourage us. And I really take his advice seriously to have an abundance mentality. Now, one of the things is there's going to be a lot of chaos. It's like building a house in the middle. And I'm a big believer that it shouldn't just be waiting until the end. Anytime we adopt something new, anytime there's sort of small milestones along the way, things that we can say both to the individual, the team, the organization publicly, hey, this has gotten done. What a great step on the project. And again, you can be creative or imaginative with what kind of celebration you have. There's always somebody on your team who wants to take charge of fun. Trust me. And I'll organize it for your team if you need me. so the other thing about the importance as on your teams is also to help your team members to maybe understand what's in it for them. Again, that makes their change easier. And here's a list of skills. I'm not going to read them all to you, but a list of ideas around what's in it for any individual on the team. And I do think I want to just focus on this last one here. Sometimes, you know, people are involved in the project and maybe they need to have some small bonus attached to the successful project. I know that's not true in every organization. But again, if this is going above and beyond what their effort normally would be in order to participate in this, a one-time kind of way to achieve that, I think is worth considering. And my experience was it was very successful. It didn't have to be large, but it encouraged, kind of caught people's attention, that leadership recognized that they were going above and beyond. And again, we were captivating them, their interest in keeping positive about the change. So just a real quick review. You know, is it about people? You know, that's where we came up with your name. Is it about people? People? Question mark. Yep, it's people. But yeah, we can be enthusiastic about it. It's people. And so we're all humans. Change is uncomfortable. But, you know, we can get there. And we've got lots of examples of it. And I hope that we've given you a few tools to think about what made you successful before, how can you be successful again? Letting people express their fears, the concerns that they have, our tips and hints around getting communication skills right, around leadership engagement, and the other ones that we've talked about as well. And I think what I'll do is ask Angie if there are questions, or who has the first question out there.
Thank you, Mary and Jenny. Yes, we do have a couple of questions that have come through. The first one is, how can we measure the success of a change management initiative?
Okay, so I guess I would start with, I would list all of the reasons that you're going, because I don't know that you do a change management initiative separate from some kind of a project, right? So I would start by saying, what are the things that we want to accomplish in this project? And we might just verbally describe them. We want this to be easier. Okay, and then attach a measurement. What is it now? What would easier mean, right? And then measure how close we came to achieving that, or how often we came to achieving that. I'm sure Jenny has some ideas on that as well.
Generically, I would attach it to the goals of the project. What are the project objectives? What are the must-haves for the project? What do we need to accomplish? List them out. It's pretty much what you said. And did we meet those?
Yeah. So, and again, I think, I'm also someone I know very well said that I quote all the time, some is not a number, soon is not a time, and hope is not a strategy. So we hope that this gets better. Well, no, what is it? Well, we want some improvement. Well, let's put the numbers on it. Let's make sure that we're using metrics around it. So then we have the opportunity to measure the success of a change management project. But again, I don't think you can do change management separate from a project. Now, I said that I would come back to, and this seems like a perfect opportunity to talk about change management in an office. I do know that we can help people to feel more comfortable with change. We can also hire people who are more comfortable with change. In my old job, we were growing very quickly as I managed, and our offices switched. This was back when people used to go to offices, but you were forever moving your desks around, and it was just part of the nature of the project. And we would realize that we were hiring folks who kind of were not change people. They were really sort of, I like it when we do it one way, and kind of resistant to change. And we're like, oh, but there are people who like change. How can we find them? And one of the things we would mention in our interviews was, how do you feel about moving your office? Now, this was an interview for a job that they didn't have, and the people in an office that they didn't have. And you could see people visibly shrink away from the question. Oh, move my office, huh? And sometimes that would happen to people like 6 times a year. So there is the element of, hire people who are comfortable with change, talk about change. But again, I don't know that you can do it separate from being in a project, Jenny. I haven't seen that done. Have you?
I don't
No.
think so.
All right, Angie, what else you got for us?
Okay, thank you. Do you have tips on what kind of education or coaching we can provide to our senior leadership if they are not experienced with change management? Hmm. 。
Hmm. 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。
.
Hmm. I guess, Angie, I guess what I would say, first of all, whoever asked that question, I like the question. I think I'd like more information about it, so I'm just going to put it out there. If that person wants to call me, I'm happy to talk about it. I led a lot of executive teams in a consulting world through change. I think if I had to pick one skill to focus on, I would say two. I think you have to have a plan. It has to be written down, and everybody has to know what the plan is. And the second piece is from a leadership perspective. I think that if they don't hold people accountable to the plan, if they're not comfortable holding people accountable, then people start to get the idea that the change is not mandatory. And I think that if I had to pick one skill, I'd say have a plan, but make sure your executives know how to hold people accountable. I think of all the projects that I was involved with, the ones I consulted on as well, I think the accountability skill was the thing I had to probably teach the most to senior level executives, and to cascade that specific skill down to different levels, even down to like, shift leaders. If an organization isn't good at accountability, it tends to be throughout the organization.
So I think the answer is Mary would like to come in and do the education and coaching for your senior leadership.
It's one of my favorite things to do, Jenny, so I won't lie.
I think that would be a great idea.
So.
Okay, couple other questions real quick. Jenny, is there any, if you can think back on all your projects you've worked on, what is one thing, what is one thing from the most successful ones that you wish you had on every project?
Good question. I would think it would be maybe that the users have commitment and focus. So having that commitment and focus from all of them to take the time to really review, understand Business Central processes and how their processes work with BC, to be able to fully test all the processes prior to go live. And it goes back with the one slide we had, I think, of would you throw the little boy into the big game and into the baseball game right away? No, we would practice, practice, practice. So I think that's really a big key to successful projects, is that the key users have that time to practice, 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 and figure everything out ahead of time, not at go live. That's what makes a smooth go live. But on the flip side, it also means that there has to be a realistic timeline set for the go live, because key users have their daily tasks as well. So we need to make sure that we can balance the two out.
Agreed, thank you. And Mary, which is more important, people change management or process change management?
Angie, I always find this to be a tough question. I have identified as both a data geek and a culture freak in my life. So I think both are really important. I think process changes are key. But if I had to place my money on one or the other, red or black, if you will, I said I will take the people change. I think if we understand how hard it is for people to change, and we talk about that, I think then uh, and have strategies around people and getting the right folks involved and all the setting the vision up and etc. If we do that well, then the process changes I think are going to be easier. You still need to make the process changes, absolutely 100%, but people are the ones that are going to execute on the change processes. So I'm going to say it's got to be the people side of it. And I think sadly, I think we give it short shrift sometimes. Um, um, And I think Jenny and I have both been in projects where that's been true. So anything else for us? Any other questions out there, Angie?
No, I think that's all that have come through. If anybody has any additional questions, or if you want to rewatch this and you think of something else, feel free to reach out to us, to reach out to Mary or Jenny, or you can always reach out to our email address, info@inovia.com, and we'll be more than happy to get your answers answered or get your questions answered from there. So. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to our presenters for presenting on this great topic. And Mary, Jenny, any last minute words you would like to say before we wrap up?
So I'm just going to add that the fear of change, the change begins where the fear of where you are is greater than the fear of where you're going. And I think what we've tried to talk about today is we acknowledge that there's fear involved because we're humans. Again, might even be in our DNA. But we also tried to give you tips and tools and the ideas to make where you're going not so scary. And I think when we do that, we can be much more successful at any kind of project, whether it's the ERP project or any others. So.
Well said.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap. Again, thank you everyone for attending. And before you exit, please make sure you complete our survey at the end. That will help us with future material and improvement. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you soon on another Inovia webinar. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye-bye.